second to last week that we're together, so wow. How have you guys been enjoying the class? It's really good, right? I know, I'm so grateful for this class. Okay, well, I'm just going to pray, and then we're going to watch the video tonight. We have our own beloved Linda Harden with us again. Yay! She's so amazing. So excited. Okay, so we're going to just pray, and then we'll begin. Okay, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus, for all the ways that you desire health for us, all the ways that you desire freedom for us. Thank you, Jesus, that you care so much about our hearts. You care so much about our relationships, that you want to see wholeness within us, Lord, and healing among us, that you desire truth in relationships, that you desire peace for us, Lord. And so we want to receive everything that you have for us. Open up our ears, open up our hearts, open up our eyes to see what it is that you're teaching us, and give us the courage to trust you and to follow you into the truth. Thank you, Lord, that you are the Spirit of truth, and you always lead us into the truth. So, Father, we give this time to you tonight, and we say, Lord, just teach us, like highlight to us the things that we need to learn specifically. Let our hearts just burn inside of us and just nudge us, convict us, all the things, Lord, so that our eyes and our hearts would be open to what it is that you want us to learn tonight. So thank you, Father. We love you. And yeah, we invite you here. We invite you here. You are our great teacher, and we trust you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Conflict isn't always a bad sign in relationships, but how you handle and approach conflict can be. In this session, we'll explore how to protect and actually strengthen the connection while resolving a powerful disagreement. Even though conflict is famous for stirring up our anxiety, I'll share a story about how a powerful confrontation can actually create stronger relational connection. Enjoy. Chapter 7 is addressing conflict. Conflict is going to be, it's only going to happen when you have a relationship with another human being. So whenever two people show up in a relationship, there's an excellent chance that there's going to be disagreement. There's going to be something that happens that's disappointing, that's that hurts, that's frustrating, whatever. So how do we communicate through conflict and successfully end up with a stronger relationship as a result? That's what I'd like to talk about. And it starts with the goal that we choose. Remember, in earlier chapters, we talked about the right goal. The right goal between agreement or understanding. See, if we choose the goal, I need people to agree with me before we're going to be able to move on, then you've just set yourself up for disconnection and arguing. You've also communicated that people can't be themselves around you, they have to be you around you. And so when I make the goal understanding, I'm listening for something different than I already thought. I'm looking for needs different than I have, because there's another human being involved here. I'm also going to choose the style of how I communicate in such a way that lowers anxiety. Remember, we talked about passive-aggressive communication styles. They all juice up the anxiety. They're all rooted in fear. They're ways of communicating in an attempt to control somebody else. But the assertive communicator is the one who's sending the message, you matter, and so do I. So there's two powerful people at work in this conversation. The key is really focusing on the connection. To prioritize the connection in a conflict, I'm going to remember that our relationship is at stake as we discuss this thing we disagree about. the quality of our relationship is under assault, if you will, when we disagree. So if we don't aim to protect it, then it could become the casualty of two people showing up in the relationship. Now, in order to have a successful conflict, I have to measure the strength of our connection. If we have a fragile connection, we're not going to be able to sort out this big giant problem. I'm not really going to even have much influence with you. And so the goal is really to build that connection, create that connection, protect it, strengthen it, develop it, so that we can work out some pretty big disagreements, but protect that connection. It looks like something like this. Imagine that this is our relationship. Just stay right there. This is our relationship, all right? This is the strength of our connection right here. Now, Miriam, grab that, okay? Don't let go, all right? Okay, so I say, you know what? Where do you want to go to eat? Panera Bread. She'd like to go to Panera Bread, and I go, I don't want to go to Panera. I want to go to Chinese. We just disconnected over dinner. We just disconnected over where to go to dinner. So, okay, all right, okay, let's get our connection back. Okay, all right, okay. What do you want to watch on TV? An action movie. Oh, so do I. That's awesome. I want to watch a romantic comedy. Now we have broken our connection over dinner and a movie because it's so fragile. And so we end up with this situation. We're like, what do you think about that? Yeah, okay, never mind. Let's not even talk about it. Let's not even talk about it. Okay, I was wanting to kind of go up. Never mind. Okay, let's not talk about that either. Actually, if we just kind of stand here, we're going to get disconnected. Why? Because the quality of our relationship has been something that we've never worked on our connection. We've never tended to this reality that we're different. I've never listened. I've never adjusted. I've never served. We've always tried to not break the connection because it's just always been so fragile. But if we spend some time working on this connection, and we end up with, go ahead and wrap your hand around it. We end up with a situation where we have a strength here. And we say, I really am afraid if the kids hang out with that person over there. And you think it's fine. And so we have a conversation where all of a sudden, I actually need you to listen, to stay connected, and to move from where you were to where we are now. Likewise, there's going to be a day when she needs something from me, she pulls on it, and I don't want to move, but it's the connection, my desire to protect the connection, that's moving me with her. See, this is how we influence each other. Thank you very much. Let's all give Miriam a hand. That was beautiful. We pay close attention to the strength and the attention that we're giving to the connection. That allows us to put a bigger load on the relationship. I can put a bigger demand when I need something that you don't need. You don't need it. Conversations about sex, conversations about money, conversations about the children, about the in-laws. Now we can have a real conversation about what we need because of the strength that we've built into this connection. And I'll actually move. I'll find myself behaving differently to serve what it is that you need. You'll find yourself behaving differently to serve what I need because the strength of our connection that we've been working on. And that becomes a goal. And occasionally, that connection, even if it's really strong, something will sideswipe us that we just had no idea was possible to hurt us like this, and we get disconnected. I didn't see that coming. Other times it's just we've been pretty fragile, and so it's disconnect, try to reconnect, disconnect, try to reconnect. If I could give you some advice about communicating, it would be that when you're disconnected, please don't try to work out the problem. Please don't say, we need to talk about this. We're disconnected. Do you understand the condition we're both in? Here's what we have. We have two people. When we get disconnected, that fear comes in and fills that spot. Now, we're going to try to work this out. Well, I think you care more about yourself than you care about me. And you think the same about me. And so these two people who are afraid of each other are going to try to work out what it is that they need. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're going to try to control the other person to produce what they need without being vulnerable, without protecting the connection, because they don't have one. There's nothing to protect. And so, please, when you find yourself disconnected and there's an issue, just take the relationship and put it above the issue. Make the relationship more important than the issue. Whatever it is, I don't care what it is, it's not more important than your relationship. Unless you don't pay attention. Because over and over we make these situations, we make these disagreements, we make money, we make the children, we make some issue more important than us. And so we serve the issue instead of the issue serves us. So please, work on your connection. And how do we work on a connection? Well, we talked about the love languages earlier. That's a great start. If Sherry and I end up disconnected and we know we got to work something out, I'm moving towards her. I'm like, okay, I need to listen well. This girl's a quality time girl. Okay, I need to hear her. I need to hear well. And maybe somewhere in the middle of her talking, I'll say, can I get you a cup of coffee? Because she's quality time and acts of service. And I want to send a message, I love you, I care about you, even though we got this big old giant thing to deal with. And somewhere in there, we may be sitting on the couch next to each other. Maybe her leg's touching my leg, because I don't know what it is, but when her leg touches my leg, I feel loved. I don't know what. I'm a touched dog. I don't know what it is. She'll tell me, and if she says she loves me to me, that goes in. Boom, it goes in because I'm an affirmation guy too. So touch and affirmation. Turn those on. Get some connection back. As soon as we get the connection back, we have, the anxiety has dropped. Now we're feeling better. We're feeling like, whoa, okay. We got our connection back. We're listening. Anxiety's dropped. I have come to this conflict ready to serve. I've come to this conflict ready to adjust. I'm about to get some good information I didn't have, and I'm going to meet a need. I'm going to change the way I've been handling myself in the direction of what it is I know she needs. Maybe she needs to feel valued. Because the way I handled that, she felt disrespect. And it hurt her. Like, okay, I have a disrespect mess to clean up with my wife. All right, I'm going to adjust. I've come here to serve. I've not come here to rule. And so in that place of humility, in that place of honor, I'm going to communicate to her that she's more valuable to me than the checkbook. She's more valuable to me than my free time. She's more valuable to me than how we handle this situation with one of my children. She's more valuable to me. And that comes from my willingness to adjust. It comes from my value, my willingness to serve.
It really addresses relationships, and that's all life is really, whether it's with your wife or with your family, with coworkers or strangers.
It's relative to every situation. I mean, I read through the book still, and I think that, whoa, this is happening with, my sister or, my friend at work or everything. And I think not just in a marriage relationship, but it gives you tools to kind of love others well, and just your friends and your family as well. So I think it was all around like an amazing asset for us.
So I got an email exchange with a friend of mine who actually is also one of my employees. And his name is Andy Mason. We've worked together for a number of years, and he's put together a series of conferences that are called Dream Culture. And he's just a super valuable team member, and I want him to feel powerful. I want him to know that I value him in our relationship. I want there to be honor flowing back and forth. And so some things happened, and I was in Hawaii without my wife, which is already a bad day, But if you got to do it in Hawaii, right? And I got this email. He says, "Hi, Danny. In our team meeting today, talking about a Dream Culture conference, Jason mentioned he was doing a wedding on Friday, and then Aaron, your assistant, mentioned you're doing a wedding as well and the preparation the evening prior. I felt disappointed that you were not going to be at what I believe to be a GTI event," which is what we do, a GTI. "And even more so to hear it from your assistant. I appreciate you obviously trust us with this, but feel abandoned in the battlefield with no communication from headquarters. I'm not sure whether GTI is yours or ours, or you are nursing it along until you can offload it onto me, but this is no fun. I feel like you have given me the keys to the house of freedom and empowerment, but I still need direction and guidance and shaping to find my way around. Looking forward to hearing how you see this. Andy." Okay? So Andy's in big trouble, huh? Talk to me like that. Who's he think he is? "Andy, I'm sorry that you found out this way. I forgot about the overlap. Poor communication on my part. I did see this as something you and Janine would primarily carry, and I didn't think I was creating a problem. I'm not wanting you to ever feel abandoned. I'm very much a partner and very sorry if you're not feeling that. I have no intention of offloading GTI onto you, but I do expect your leadership role to increase. We can talk more about this if you need to. I love you and value our partnership. Again, I'm sorry this came down this way. I understand how you would feel shocked and even hurt by my behavior. Please forgive me. P.S. Good feedback." Thanks so much for your response, Danny. I'd already forgiven you. I'm also learning to communicate more how I feel, what I need, both with you and also Janine and others. My default has been suppression and silence, and that doesn't build intimacy or trust or health. Thanks for hearing and validating what I feel and not just pointing out my own insecurities and fears. Relationship is really important to me. I don't want to just accomplish something great with GTI. I want to build strong relationships along the way. Anthony West said something to me the other day that challenged my alignment. Success in the kingdom is not about accomplishment, but about relationship. I don't want to just build my own thing or build something for you. I want to build with you. I love you, Andy. This is a confrontation. This is where someone's been hurt by someone powerful in their life. And they can either choose to just stuff it and let it fester, or they can bring it into the light. And this is the big challenge for us. The big challenge is that we live in the light together, that we bring things out, that I'm willing to trust you, I'm willing to put a demand on the relationship so that there will be adjustment, so that that needs can be met, so that there can be comfort in the relationship, so that the bond of trust can be built. This is a successful confrontation. This is what happens when we protect this bond deliberately. We do it on purpose.
After 25 years of marriage, and it's been great, really great, one thing that has evaded us is how to successfully have a discussion that isn't necessarily a conflict or an argument, but just where we don't quite see eye to eye, how to do that in a really constructive way. And I think Danny's book really was sensational. His whole idea of the goal is to understand and not to have to have agreement. And so I'm really looking forward to the next 25 years.
When you make your goal to protect connection, conflict becomes an opportunity to strengthen your most important relationships. Ask yourself a few questions. Am I aware of my goal going into confrontation? What is the strength of my connection with this person right now? Do I understand what they need from me? Make it a point to practice your listening and communication skills. Make connection your goal. It may be your greatest investment. As always, remember, keep your love on.
Okay, well, let's see. So we're going to do the core concepts first and then the questions, right? You want to do this? Sure, I'll do this part. Okay, so everybody get your books out, and we're on page 71. Make sure I'm using this. It's good to be back again and trying to help clarify some of the issues that Danny Silk talks about. And anyway, so we are on page 71, and we're just filling in the blanks at this point. So. Oh. Okay. Was that good? Okay, that helps. Not having to hold it. Okay. Whoop. I can hold it like this. Okay, I'll just hold it this way. Okay, so. Oh, all right, good. All right. So in the first sentence, when you have a relationship with another human being, then what is going to happen, as Danny Silk was saying? Conflict, that's right. The way you communicate and resolve conflict will either weaken or what? Strengthen the relationship, that's right, or a relational connection. Conflict can become ugly when we react, right, from fear and pain, as opposed to respond. Two people who are disconnected are not going to work things out. They are only going to try to control or manipulate, right, one another to get their needs met. The key to prioritize the connection above the issue, offense, confusion, or disagreement. That's right. We always want to prioritize the connection piece more than anything. Before approaching a potential conflict, during it, and even after, to remind ourselves, the connection is so important. Be prepared to what? To adjust to meet the needs of the other person. Let's see here. So, guidelines for communication, communicating the message, I care about your needs, at the beginning of a respectful conversation to resolve conflict is crucial. In a respectful conversation, there must always be a speaker and a listener. That's right. The role of the listener is to understand what the speaker, or as is referred to as the DVD player, is saying. A skilled listener with a servant's heart, right, is the deadliest weapon against fear bombs that threaten connection. So those are the core concepts. And I don't have the questions in front of me here. Yeah. Sure.
Did you have any extra lecture you wanted to go over, or did you just want me to ask you the questions?
Ask me the questions. I've got. I'm going to go over the what do you call it? The fair fighting rules.
Okay.
With one of the questions. I think it's number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll have you just take that.
Okay.
Okay, let's sit.
So tiny chairs.
Sorry. It's higher up so they can see in the video.
Oh,
Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm going to ask a couple questions, and if you guys have questions, you can also ask. Okay. So the first question I want to ask you, Linda, is this. So Danny said that the way you communicate and resolve conflict will either weaken or strengthen a relational connection. So can you give me an example of how it can actually strengthen a relational connection?
Okay, well, I think a lot of it has to do with, what he was talking about regarding protecting the connection. So the first step is always, of course, to be aware of that before you engage in a conversation that there could be conflict, is to kind of remember, to reflect, to have it part of your, to be able to connect above all else. And I think it's that awareness that really makes a difference. The other thing is to be able to measure, right, the fragileness or the strength of the connection that might be going on, between you and the other person, whether it's your spouse, a coworker, whatever it is, to be able to, especially I think in marriage, to be able to measure the strength of it. And if it feels fragile or there feels like there's a disconnect, it's very important to address that first, right? And I know Danny Silk in previous lectures talked about starting with maybe using the love language, to know what your spouse's top 2 love languages are, and to address that, to connect. If it's words of affirmation, to remind them, how valuable they are to you, that you honor them, that you want to have a conversation with mutual respect. If it's acts of service, I love what Danny was saying about getting his wife a cup of coffee. Some of you may have spouses who, that's also true, acts of service, and so maybe you'll do a good job of doing the dishes or some kind of chores, letting them know that you value what makes them feel loved and what allows the connection to occur. And then I think once in the conversation, it's important to remember these points. That number 1, the person is always more important than the issue. That may sound really, logical and obvious, but sometimes it really isn't, is it? Sometimes we make the issues more important than that person, because it becomes so loud and so big. It just feels like I've got to be able to address this thing, and it's almost like the person becomes invisible. So I really like how he emphasizes that. The other thing is that my needs are just as important as your needs, and that mutual respect, that mutual understanding kind of pulling away from the powerless person, right, where someone is passive. So therefore, they're thinking that other people are important and they're not, or they're aggressive. They think that their issue, their perspective is important, but other people's aren't. Or even the passive-aggressive theme, where being sarcastic, or having said innuendos or things that just communicate, that there might be some veiled anger or resentment underneath. So, and also I think making it a point to really to educate yourself and to practice listening and communication skills. And not just listen, but really do it. Because sometimes in my office I'll be with people and, we'll go through lots of things, but then the next week they come back, oh, we didn't really do that. So, we have to be able to implement what we're learning, right? And that makes it, I think, better character development as the Lord works in our hearts, right? In every area. Almost done. So, again, remembering to listen to understand, not to listen for agreement. I know a lot of times for myself and my husband, I have to, I'll say that ahead of time to him. Honey, I'm just looking for you to understand and to hear me right now. I'm not looking for you to agree. And for some reason for him, through the years, he's gotten better now, but for some reason, he thought that, by trying to have a conversation where he was hearing me out or listening, that somehow he was being in agreement. I said, no, hon, that's a whole separate, conversation. Of course, at some point, yes, you may have to get to the point where there's negotiation, there's compromising, there's things that need to adjust in a situation. But at first, people just feel so much more loved if they are feeling that you are hearing them and, just being willing to, they feel much more validated. So making connection the goal, and establishing that first, then we're more willing to make adjustments, as Danny refers to, with a servant's heart. And therefore, you're going to strengthen the relational connection. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can I go off topic? Can I?
You
go
sure
offline?
can. Go right ahead.
Okay.
You have
What
a lot of
if
knowledge,
you?
girl.
No. What if you are in? Okay. So what if you're taking this class?
Yeah.
And your spouse is not taking the class, and you want to come and you want to do all that stuff where you don't want to resolve a conflict while you're disconnected, and so
Yeah.
you want to reconnect, and your spouse is resistant, or your child is resistant, or your friend, whoever it is that this relationship is about, and what should you do? Should you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you do all this stuff if both parties are not amenable to it?
Yeah, that's a real challenge, isn't it? I think, of course, the first thing that comes to my mind is educating them. If your spouse is hopefully, Lord willing, wanting to have a better relationship, a better sense of connection in general, I guess you have to start on a real basic level, on that level. And if they're willing, then to maybe educate them a little bit on what you're learning, how important it is that he, or in my case, obviously, if it was talking about my husband, that he is the most important, not the issue, that both of our needs are important. These are like really basic, important things that I think anybody would appreciate, because we're wanting to communicate with mutual respect. And so I guess in a short sentence, it's really a matter of education and maybe presenting things in a way that the other person is going, oh, yeah, I want more of that. Yeah, I want to feel like we're connected. I want to feel like we can, resolve conflict better. So whether they've taken this class or not, hopefully, if they're interested in more of a sense of connection, then they're going to be willing to hopefully hear at least some of it.
Yeah,
No.
I guess with this whole situation, we do a lot of relationship around agreement, right? And then we do a lot of disconnection around disagreement. I mean, that seems like what the culture does. I remember, well, I want to know your perspective on this.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a friend, and her husband had a child that decided, they're going to live a gay lifestyle and stuff like that. So then I think they were in some turmoil about how to deal with it, but it was definitely a situation where they elevated the situation over the relationship, and so what would you do if they were at odds? Like, what would you do if, like, let's say the wife wanted to elevate the relationship and then the husband wanted to elevate the
moral compass there.
the situation?
Well, of course, what Danny Silk would say, and I would agree, to emphasize that we value the person above the issue, that we love this person, right? This is our son, this is our daughter. We're going to choose to love them, regardless of, in my opinion, their lifestyle, what they're choosing. I mean, many of us have adult children, and in situations where our kids are living with other people and they're not married. There's lots of different kinds of situations, that we disagree with. I know the gay, of course, I prefer to say same-sex attraction, because I think when you use the word gay, you're talking about an identity, and I don't believe there's an identity here. So I think it kind of allows us a step separately by saying same-sex attraction, and showing a symptom. Linda. You like that? Yeah. Anyway, so you elevate the person. Always elevate the person in love, right? And sometimes people get caught up in the moral compass of what needs to take place, with our kids' behavior. And I don't know, it's a touchy one, it really is. Yeah. And I'm trying to think besides that, what else would be important, besides elevating the person? Maybe there is a certain amount of mutual respect in that if the person is not a believer at this time, your son or daughter, or they're not looking in that direction, I think there still needs to be openness to dialogue, to hear them out. Remember the idea of listening to understand, not listening for agreement, right? So there's another piece there. And sometimes those kinds of things can take practice, because we're so quick to want to put our opinions in right away, our viewpoints. And it can be very, I think, helpful to really practice just being able to understand, even if we don't agree. Yeah.
Okay, and you guys can jump in if you have a question, but I'll keep going unless you do. Okay, so the second question is, what words or phrases would you say are off limits during a conflict? And these are your papers.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Do you want me to give you this?
Yeah, thank you. I can always retrieve that later. Yeah. Okay, well, the sheet that everyone got tonight on the fair discussion rules, I've gotten a lot of this stuff from a lot of different places through the years, and put this together more than once, about how to communicate, what are the tools for communicating effectively with other people. And so things that, one may want to avoid are things like number 2, you want to avoid sentences that start with you, right? You're doing this and you've done that, and how dare you do so, such and so, or you never, you always. And remember, we're responsible for our side of the fence, and we can really only share what's in our heart with other people. We cannot tell other people how they feel or what should be going on inside of them. And I think that communicates that I am different than you and you're different than me. Right. And so, there's a separation there. Right. Sometimes we think that, agreement is something that we need to feel good about the relationship, and it's not always the case. So, avoiding sentences like "you" and rather going inside of yourself and talking about how you feel, being able to, first of all, recognize what you feel, right? And second of all, to be able to communicate it. And then thirdly, to be able to manage it effectively, right? We don't want to be yelling and screaming. Doesn't help. Then we only hear the yelling and the screaming, right? We don't really hear the person's heart or what's going on inside of them. It's just loud. Anyway, number 3, avoiding always and never. I think that most things are not always and never when you think about it, right? So those are things that are important. Number 4, avoid blaming, name calling, putting people down, mean teasing or sarcasm. And, things like, oh my gosh, that dress makes you look fat. Where in the world did you get that idea? Oh, you're always so perfect. There's 101 things that people can tend to say, when they're upset or coming from Danny Silk was saying, coming from fear and control rather than, again, trying to listen to understand, that kind of thing. Why questions aren't really very helpful. They kind of promote defensiveness. Why do you do this? And why are you always doing that? Sometimes people think, well, why is legitimate, but it really doesn't help. As Danny was talking about ways of keeping anxiety down, why doesn't do that? It almost increases anxiety, like somehow the person has to rationalize or justify themselves all the time. So, let's see here. And of course, cursing. I think that cussing in general, especially when you're trying to talk to a person that you love and care for, or you're trying to resolve conflict, even if it's not directly at the person, I just don't think it's helpful. In my opinion, it's kind of lazy. It's kind of letting the other people know around you you're angry, you're upset, but you're not exercising those muscles enough to use different kinds of words to kind of describe it a little more in detail, It's easy just to kind of throw off those curses, yeah. And then threatening the relationship, well, if you don't do that, we'll just get a divorce. Just kind of threatening the relationship is very harmful. And of course, that's going to bring up a disconnect right away. Or even bringing up the past inappropriately. Yes, it's okay to bring up something that may have happened, but inappropriately meaning, just breaking all the rules of cursing and calling each other names and blaming and all those things of what happened 5 years ago that's still with you. It's using all the,
Actually, can I
yeah,
jump in there?
mm-hmm.
Okay, so this happens a lot in relationships where, let's say there was like a infidelity or something, and then so let's say it was the wife that committed adultery, and then so the husband forgave the wife, but then he keeps bringing it back up, like even though he said he forgave the wife, like when is that like no longer allowed, that he gets to bring up again and again like what she did in the past?
In the past, yeah, it's a good question. People seem to be in different. Forgiveness sometimes can feel like a journey, especially when something like that happens, right? Because you really break the covenant when you commit adultery, and some people want to know the details, and other people really don't. It doesn't help. Some people want to know every detail, and that almost helps them to deal with reality as opposed to whatever might be in their head about what could have happened or may have happened. And it actually helps them to have all the pieces to put together. I think that that has to really be worked out individually. I have somebody that it was 2 years ago, and she's just really having a hard time because of what her husband did. Now, she says it's less than it was 2 years ago. She feels like there's improvement. She's moving forward, but she still needs to talk about it. So I guess as I'm talking out loud here, I'm thinking one of the things that sometimes I suggest is that there's a time frame, a time limit. Like maybe if it feels like, I don't know, a couple times a week, or, you know, it has to be worked out, I think, with each couple. So I can't really give a blank, you know, situation there. But, you know, I think that having time frames can, you know, be effective. You know, like, okay, once a day for 20 minutes, you can bring up whatever question, you can say what you want, but it was going to be limited to 20 minutes. That way the person gets a chance to say things, but then they're also, you know, they can't just walk around the house all day, or, you know, throw things in the other one's face, or even try to talk appropriately, but doing it, you know, 5 times a day. It doesn't really help. You know, does that make sense? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Keep going. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah.
So, going piggyback of what she was talking about, yes,
Uh-huh.
it's in the past, but what if it arises now and it was unknown to you because it was in the past, and you just want to confirm what happened and get the facts, but yet the other person doesn't want to give full details. You get the runaround. It wasn't peaches, it was apples, and you're telling that person, I know it's peaches, just tell me it was peaches. And, well, it was cherries and maybe some apples, you know, like, you know what I mean? And you want to hear it was peaches. Just tell me from your mouth it was peaches, and just be honest. How do you handle that when you're trying to, it's not that you're focused on the past, you just want that honesty part of it.
Yes, and that's partly why people keep bringing it up, because unfortunately, you know, adultery is all about deception, isn't it? It's all about lying. It's all about being secretive. So when things start coming to the surface and people are coming to therapy, you know, or even if they're at home trying to work this out, the other party is not always sure they're getting all the facts. So they may talk about it in different ways and from different perspectives, or on different days. And sometimes, you know, it kind of feels like peeling the layers of an onion. You are getting to more truth. And the person is being maybe more transparent because they maybe almost got to the point where they didn't even realize how many little lies were still in there. And so sometimes that is important to keep talking about it until you get to the point where everything's out, especially if that other party that really helps them to heal, you know, to be able to know. Like I said, not everybody wants to know everything. And so there's no really right or wrong. It's just what that particular person needs for the healing. And to know that the other one is willing to honor them enough to go through however many conversations it's going to take. You know, with some boundaries of time frame. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was wondering, like, how do you get out of a habit of being reactive? With, like, a specific person? Like, if you're always reactive with one person, like, how do you get out of that habit?
That's a very good question. It's kind of like, I think actually that was kind of question 4, you know, is what do you really do, right, to get out of that? That's question 4. I think that it may be different with one spouse than other people, and it may not be. Sometimes what came to my mind was that if somebody has a habit of reacting with that one person, sometimes it could be that they're being triggered from the past. Maybe there's a unresolved wound with a parent or somebody else in their life, and they're not recognizing that in that moment. You know, it's not that person really. I did? Okay. Yeah. Well, sometimes you need to see a professional person to process that with. That memory, that hurt, that wound. Sometimes we use freedom prayer, and sometimes freedom prayer can be very helpful to get to some roots. Other times, you know, you might process that with the Lord, you know, and ask for the Holy Spirit for more revelation, wisdom. So it helps to journal and process that out and figure out where it's coming from, because then in the moment, you can say to yourself, you know, oh, okay, I've processed that. That's not you. That's my Father. That's something my father would say, and so now I'm reacting to you. So having the insight is really important to stop yourself. To be able to say, wait a minute, this isn't you right now. This is something else. Now, do I need to go off and journal for a few minutes about that other situation, or can I just recognize it and then move on? So moving on or in the moment, has to do with, in my opinion, a lot of self-care, taking a deep breath, right? Sometimes we have the speed when it comes to conflict, especially with our spouse or whatever. We have all this stuff we feel like we have to get out. And it's really important to take one's time to make sure that even you approach your spouse at first and say, hey, I want to talk about something. Is this a good time? Or can we set up a time where we can take our time and really hear each other, really listen to understand, and not just kind of make a Zoom for, trying to get to agreement somehow, So, so taking deep breaths and being able to maybe possibly recognize if it's coming from the past, in the moment, then being able to, I think, doing other things, like maybe somebody needs to take a time out. Be able to say, you know what, can you give me 5 minutes? I need to collect myself. To actually, even as an adult, to give yourself a time out and go, hey, I'm recognizing I'm not being real respectful right now. I'm not honoring you right now. And I want to, be able to maintain my my own heart here and contain my feelings. So I need to get away. Sometimes it's 5 minutes. It might be an hour. You might need to tell your spouse, you know what, I just need to process more what was said, and let's tap into this tomorrow. Let's try again tomorrow. And it's very important to take time in between, if it looks like. Because, sometimes I tell people it takes 20 conversations, depending on how big the issue is. People try to get through something in an hour. Or one person's going down the hall, right, while the other one's trying to talk to them. No, let's sit down. Let's find a time. Let's make sure we have good eye contact. Let's really hear each other and make sure we have the time. And again, sometimes if something feels really big, I know I've encouraged people, I've done it myself in my own relationship, of actually writing letters. I'll write a letter to my husband with my feelings, what's going on, and it feels pretty heated. But it allows him to listen to understand without me being right there with all the emotionality, that happens sometimes. So we've written letters back and forth, on big issues, maybe 4 or 5 times, and then we'll come back and talk verbally because, we've gotten a lot out. I feel like he's at least understood my position because of how he's written the letters. But it just gives you a little more of an avenue, longer period of time to feel like you can work something out without maybe dealing in the moment with that person's emotional, reactive feeling at that time. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, what if you are exercising your I messages to somebody, like, I feel this way, I feel that way. You're not saying you, but instantly they go into, well, I'm just a horrible person, and I'm just this, and I'm just that. How do you keep trying to resolve that conflict while they're blowing up with just you trying to say how you feel?
Mm-hmm. When blowing up is self-depreciation, negative stuff.
You're explaining that, I feel this way when you not when you do this, but I feel this way because of this and because of that, and instantly they just go in defense mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not helpful, huh? Well, of course, if they have done any studying about, our identity in Christ, saying something to them like, wow, I think of you as an honest person, someone who gives a lot to the relationship. Sometimes it can help to talk about the positive of what you do see, maybe before continuing that discussion. things that are true, but that are honest, that you like. We call it the sandwich model, where you say something positively about them or about something that you notice that they do or that you appreciate, and then maybe bring in something that you would like to address. And then at the end of the sandwich, you're reiterating, what you see that's positive in them. And you want them to know that you appreciate them, and that you want to have mutual respect here, and that you are not asking them to do anything that you're not also willing to do. Like we talked about that in the first session, that we're not asking someone to show respect when we're also not willing to give it. But also maybe at some point to address the fact, and of course that person may have to have their own journey with this, that putting themselves down, is not helpful. It doesn't get you anywhere. And, you are trying to let them know that you have weaknesses too. You're not bringing stuff up because somehow you're in a one-up position. Sometimes that's important to reiterate, that, hey, we are both sinners. We both fall short, but we don't want to shame ourselves. In Freedom Prayer, we talk a lot about the difference between shame and guilt, where shame is you believe there's something wrong with you, as opposed to you did something wrong and you feel guilty about it, and so you need to, you need to repent before the Lord about what it is that you did that wasn't helpful, So I certainly would want to address that right away. The other thing, too, according to what Danny Silk is saying, is it could be that your spouse in that regard, or the person they feel disconnected by what you're saying. Yes, they feel disconnected, so you may have to back up and do some work with love language, to reconnect. Are they a person, words of affirmation? Are they acts of service? Are they physical touch? What is it, you could even ask, what is it that you need right now? Because I don't like hearing you put yourself down. That's not going to get us anywhere. We both have weaknesses and strengths, but we can both be powerful people that I'm learning in the class. And we can both have, have our needs met. And so what is it that you need? That's also another piece of it. You want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I think that we each have to be able to receive feedback from, the important people in our lives, but there's always a time to do it, the right time to do it. And anyway, I'm just praying, and I feel like it's the connection piece, that if you would strengthen the connection, then the feedback would be more readily received. So maybe you can just like hold your feedback until you're in like a better season of heart-to-heart connection again. And I'm not saying like stuff your feelings forever, but maybe this is not the time for feedback. You get what I'm saying? Because that's how it goes with like John and I. Like if I know he's raw and vulnerable, that's not the time to give him feedback. It's just not. If we're at odds and we've been at odds with each other, if he's broken my heart, no, I'm just kidding. From what John said yesterday, that was a stretch. Anyway, but he's not going to break my heart with the dishes. Okay, but so if we're in a season where we're more disconnected, and so he's feeling raw, he's feeling more vulnerable, like I'm not going to give him feedback at that time. I'm not going to hit him in his vulnerable moments. I'm going to wait until we're more in a season of peace and reconnection, and then he's strong enough to receive a feedback,
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Number 9, bringing up the past. For example, I have a child, adult child that has walked away from the Lord, but constantly is bringing up the past. How can I just shut down when he constantly when he comes to visit, brings it up, and it's like, how can do I just listen to him? That's my question.
Oh, you mean the past of how you parented him or didn't parent him, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Yes. I'm more at just like, okay, just listen. But my husband is the one that goes in defense mode, and I was like, you just need to listen, just listen. But after a while, it sounds like a broken record. We love him, but it's like it's constantly just, every time
Every time,
Yeah.
Yeah, because they say there's two hurts, from children. One is, of course, whatever we did, and all of us have done things, right? But the other is when we don't, if they do bring something up, we don't validate their reality. Sometimes that can be just very healing in itself. Yeah, I did do that. That was not helpful, was it? I was wrong there. But when you're talking about over and over, then, you certainly want to have a conversation where, you are listening to understand. But then that's when boundaries come in. I know next week is kind of dealing with that a lot. But I think that, it's okay to say, we love you very much. We made many mistakes, as, you are letting us know. We can't change the past. We can only go from today moving forward. So it's not helpful to continue bringing it up over and over to us. We hear you. Now, you may need to go over it in bullets, okay? Let's call it paraphrasing, right? Being able to paraphrase what you're hearing. What we've heard you say is X, Y, and Z, because that would make him feel heard if you actually repeated it back to him. And then beyond that, you certainly, I don't know if you've ever been in counseling yourself, but you certainly could be a role model to say, I know when I feel stuck, or if something's going on that I can't seem to let go of or is bothering me, sometimes some counseling can help. Have you ever considered that? But I think it's okay to say, there are other things that we can talk about, and moving forward, if you can continue to bring this up, I don't have ears to hear at this point. I feel like I've done my part. I've confessed it to you. I've repented. But at this point, hearing it over and over is not helpful. So we're just not going to we don't have ears to hear at this point,
I have something to say too. Okay, did you ever learn the apology model where you say back to your son, like, I acknowledge that this is what we did, and then you list out like all the things, like she was saying, like paraphrasing it back to your son. I acknowledge that this is what we did, and I believe that all these things made you feel, and then saying to your son, I believe all these things made you feel angry, violated, powerless, whatever it is that he felt, like hurt, unheard, unloved, devalued, whatever it is. And I also want to tell you that this is how I feel for causing you this damage. I feel ashamed. I feel terrible. I feel brokenhearted. I feel, you get what I'm saying? And then you fill in all those things, and then you say, in the future, what I hope to do is to treat you with, and then say all the ways that you want to treat him in the future. Like, I want to treat you with more dignity. I want to make sure we listen to you. I want to make sure we don't judge you when you come to us, whatever it is, because I don't know what the situation is. And then at the very end of that saying, and then can you please forgive us, And I also, so like that's a deeper apology than just, I'm sorry. And then I want to bring up something that Danny Silk was saying last week, unless I'm wrong, but I think he said something like, when you're listening to someone talk and then you say, like, how can I help you? Like, if you're saying, I'm so sorry, son, like, how can I help you? Like, what can I do for you now? Like, what can I do for you as your mom now? How can I help you now? In asking that simple question, and maybe that will catapult him into, yeah, actually what I need is, and give you like an action to do instead of just like staying stuck in this vortex that doesn't seem to change. Maybe it'll, jerk him out of that and into something else where you can actually do something. I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. And I think that it not just what you were saying, like in the future, but it's kind of like as of now, what can we do differently now to help your healing, to help you heal? Is there anything, that we can do? starting now. Yeah.
Okay, that is good. That's really good feedback. We just haven't got to the part where you mentioned Pastor Ann telling him, addressing it. What we just listened the whole time. So I guess maybe next time do that. Repeat back.
I'm going to
Yeah.
send that whole apology thing to you in the email to the class.
Okay.
Because I know I went over it quickly. So I'm going to go over, I'll send it to you in
It's a
the
good
email.
one.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions? Okay, you can keep
Okay.
going.
Okay, let's see, I'm going to grab my thing real quick. I think that that second question just had to do with what not to say and how not to come across. There are some other things on the sheet, but I think it's more what to do. Let me see here, where are we?
Go over that.
Yeah, let's see here. So, of course, keeping your voice level, right? To think before you speak. Avoid screaming and yelling. If a conversation starts to escalate, as we talked about, taking a time out, saying things like, hey, we're not getting anywhere right now. Let's try again in an hour. Voices are being raised, and I'm not hearing you right now. I need a time out. Or I can't discuss it right now. I'm not in the right frame of mind. Let's try again in an hour or tomorrow night. And make sure you follow through, because sometimes people will say that they will do that, and then they either forget, they get busy, and they don't follow through. So it is important to follow through and to have maybe even a set time, to do that. I think it makes people feel another way of feeling heard. The other one can't talk at that moment, but they're planning the next day or in an hour to be able to do that, to follow through. Then, of course, there's body language, right? 90% of communication, they say, is body language. So when people cross their arms, when they roll their eyes, when they avoid eye contact, when they're watching TV while their spouse is trying to talk to them, things of this nature doesn't help a person feel validated or feel connected, right? It only, I think, encourages more of a disrespectful, position. So, and then, of course, cueing your spouse or your loved one ahead of time that you need to have a discussion. I'd like to talk to you about something. Is this a good time? Can we, table this for a certain time to get together so that both people can be relaxed and able to take the time out to do that. Then we talked, number B talks about writing a letter. And then, of course, in general, just journaling emotionally escalated feelings can be helpful on paper before talking. Sometimes if you really want to talk, you can actually journal ahead of time. We were talking before about journaling afterward, maybe back and forth 3 or 4 times with a loved one. But the other thing is you can journal ahead of time just to get out some feelings before talking to your spouse so that you feel like you can, have a little bit more honoring and just it helps to keep your voice more level by being able to allow yourself to do that. Can self-regulate one's emotions better before meeting face-to-face. And then, of course, other things here, mindfulness, gardening, anything that can relax you. Sometimes walking, any kind of things of this nature can help decrease fear and anxiety before actually meeting face-to-face with someone. So, really good. Yeah, sometimes I tell people to sit with this when they're going to have a discussion so they can kind of keep each other accountable, but not like, oh, you're crossing the line there, not that kind of accountability, more for yourself, right? Because it's easy to get into the pointing thing once again. Oh, what you just did there, that's not helpful. Okay.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, otherwise I think we can get into our groups early tonight. No other questions? Okay, can we give it up for Linda? All right, you are dismissed to your groups.
Thank you, my friend. You're welcome. You're awesome.